Barili.
You mentioned it in the intro of your documentary. There's pictures of your childhood, and you talk about the ADD and the short attention span. I've dealt with that a little bit as a child, and as I've gotten older, I've meditated and done other things to try to control it. But speak about that as a creative. How do you deal? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who deal with that. You know, the ADD, the short attention. How do you, as an artist, are able to hone that in and focus on the things you need to focus on?
There are like 7 different types of ADD, and I have like 4 of them. So, and sometimes it can get crazy for me because I forget about a lot of things. Thanks to God, I don't forget about the lyrics on stage. Well, most of the time. No, all the time, because one of the symptoms also is to be like focused and you never get out of that, and you can be working on something and never finish, never end. Yeah, I have that one, so I use that one sometimes, and then I use my impulsiveness, that is also one of the symptoms, to do stuff. You know, I'm always like that. Like if you ask my team, I'm like, and they send me an email and I don't wait because I'm gonna forget, so I just reply right away, like, bah, 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 bah. I do everything like that because otherwise, I'm gonna fail. So that's how I deal with it. And also being impulsive, it got me in trouble some of the time on stage, because before I go to stage in Latin America or in Spain or in Europe, a lot of people tell me like, oh, what's happening in their country, and like a lot of social issues. So I get a little bit mad. And then with my impulsiveness, sometimes I can say things that then I say, oh, damn, I didn't have to say that way, but in a way it's good because it's honest and it's like the first thing that I thought, But sometimes it's good to think a little bit more. So it's like a good balance, sometimes. The most of the time it's been good for me, this ADD thing. In school was awful, but yeah.
For me, it's refreshing. I feel like so many artists right now are so afraid of losing fans if they say a political statement or they say something that they end up censoring themselves because they don't want to say the wrong thing, so they end up being silent. I'd much rather somebody go there and say their passion, and if, a week later they're like, well, I learned this, or maybe I should have said it a different way. I'd much rather have an artist speak from the heart and say that than what I see right now in a lot of pop culture, which is artists just censoring themselves for not wanting to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of the impulsiveness a little bit, let's talk about your documentary. You start off and you say, look, I was in the middle of an amazing run with Calle. You're selling out shows everywhere. And then you just decide that you want to do a solo album, or you want to go collaborate with artists around the world, matching your DNA and visiting places. I think you even say in your documentary you just wanted to press reset. What leads to that kind of decision?
Well, first, as an artist, I was starting to feel comfortable. And that happens a lot. And that can happen to you in music, too. And it's the worst. For me, it's the worst feeling. And I learned that also in art school. And it's one of the things that I believe in, is that as soon as you start feeling comfortable with your work, you just have to quit and do another thing, because then you're going to repeat yourself. So that was my way. In order to do something different, I just decided, even though I was very comfortable, and it was very easy to do another tour with Calle, another album, and keep going like that and earning money, and it's easy. I was comfortable as an artist, but I wasn't comfortable in terms like economically speaking. I took my risk. It's not that now I'm okay, but I wasn't like a multimillionaire that so comfortable that I can do whatever. No, I took my risk, and I put all my money on the project too, in order to make it happen. Like when I say all, I'm saying all, everything. I didn't have, I was like almost in zero. And because I believe in the project, and even though I perform in front of a lot of people and I earn, also I invest a lot in my career. I invest in the videos, I invest in everything. And I like to invest. So, what's the question?
The question was, what led to you wanting to just reset and do the solo thing at a time when you were...
So I decided to do that, to to not repeat myself. So I wanted to do something new. So like 6 years ago, a coworker told me about this test, DNA test, like, let's do a DNA test and then we can do a documentary, because I wanted to do a documentary at that time. And I did the test. He called me one day with the results. I was impressed. But then I put that like on the side because I had so many shows and so many things at that time, so that I forgot about that. And then when I started again making my new stuff, you know, for the first time, I was looking for concepts. I remember that idea about it. You know, for me, it wasn't that cool because it's like normal, like, okay, you do a DNA test and then you go to the places and what. So, and I was looking for something that brings everything together. And it was music. I decided to make my new album based on my DNA. So that's when everything got together in a great way. And then I decided to go everywhere because I'm impulsive. I wanted to go like right away. And I went to Africa. I went to Burkina Faso, to Ghana, to Niger. I went to Ossetia, that it's in the south of Russia. I went to Georgia, that they were in war, Ossetia and Georgia. And I went to Armenia, that they were at war at that time. I went to China and Puerto Rico, my country, because it's my country. What else? Oh, and Serbia, too. Serbia, I did music with Goran Bregovic. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He did music for movies, Kusturica movies, and he's a great musician. So, yeah.
Before we get into the individual countries that you went to, how is it different approaching a solo album as opposed to working with Residente for Calle 13 album? As far as work-wise, how is that different? Was that a challenge or?
It's always a challenge. Both are challenges because when you work with someone else, you know, you have to give them, like I like to give them the space. And that's what I do as a director too. I directed my last 2 videos and that's what I do with actors and with everyone, with the DP. I give them the space. Of course, I have my idea, and if it's going in another way, I just tell them, no, man, it's this way, but I give them the space. So with my brother, like, we were like collaborators, and I give him the space in music. I brought a lot of the concepts, like Latinoamerica. I told him I want to do a song about Latin America, like Rubén Blades when he did Buscando America. And I wrote the song before the music was ready, and I wrote it with Motorcycle Diaries music, Gustavo Santolaya music. I told him that too. It was a nice process, but now I'm completely free. I don't have to ask anyone anything. Like, it's so easy for me. I can go all the way. I can go crazy. In this album, I went like really nice. Like, I really like it. It's my best album, the best work that I ever done. But I know that in the future I'm gonna go even more, like in a trip. I like to do that.
For this album, you collaborated with not any known artists. You went into each town, yeah, and you worked with local musicians. Tell me why that was important to you. For
me, it was important because the music industry today, they're not paying attention to a lot of good artists that they're around the world. Here in the US, that happens a lot. Like, you know, they put like the magazine covers, like the most beautiful man in the world, and they think that they are the most beautiful man in the world. And you win a Grammy Album of the Year, and they really think that it's the best album of the year, without thinking that there's a lot of musicians and people who makes music that they don't even apply to the Grammys because they don't have the connections or they don't care. So what's the question?
The question, the question was, why was it important to work with? I mean, you're at the height of your career. You can work with whoever you want, but you specifically went to
because
people who didn't have.
Yeah, I was talking about the industry. So yeah, you see, it's like can go worse. You can ask my wife. So. Yeah, I wanted to collaborate with people that are making music because they love it, not because they really love it, because they're not going to earn a lot of money doing it and they don't care, they just love it. And that's why I was collaborating with them, and also because they had like great stories to tell. And you can see that on the documentary. Even though the industry, the music industry doesn't pay attention to them, they're still there making music. So I wanted to have that energy in my album.
Speak a little bit about, in the documentary, you document the challenges of languages, right? You're a man of words. You go to China, you don't necessarily speak the same language. You go to a lot of different places where you don't speak the same language. How, as a musician, do you communicate to another musician? You have translators, but as far as vibe and energy, how do you communicate that to someone who doesn't speak the same language as you?
Well, music is a universal language, so music was the first step in some of the cases. For example, in Siberia, when I went there, I stayed in a forest with some of the musicians. One of them, he was a hunter. So they invited us. So I went there. It was nice, we were surrounded by wolves, but it was nice. And it was beautiful. It was a time that I used to think a lot about why I'm here and why I'm not in my house and why I'm a rapper and why I like to write. So after that, I had the opportunity to start talking about music, and it was difficult because I didn't want to do a world music album. I wanted to do something new, but using their vibe and their energy and their talent and their music. Usually they don't get out of that space, of the comfortable zone that they have. And it's not comfortable, it's cultural. So I tried to talk to them, but it was difficult also because we had a translator and I never knew that if he was translating correctly all the things that I was saying. So I told them, okay, just play whatever, the things that makes you happy. So they started to play for an hour and a half. And after that, I put just a drum, kind of the beat that I wanted, but just a drum. And I told them, can you play something like that over this? And they were like, okay, But at first they were not because they're bad people, it's because it's different for them. So music was the language in order to feel relaxed and comfortable.
You were talking about being in Siberia, surrounded by wolves. You also went into a lot of war-torn countries. Did you fear for your safety at all in this trip, or did you?
In some of the places, yeah, because I wasn't naive at all about what's happening. But for example, I went to Ossetia. That they were in war in 2008, and it was very difficult to get in. And I was more scared to go to Ossetia than to go to Burkina. Because I was making research and I was like, oh, this is dangerous. But when I went there, it wasn't that dangerous. It's still a difficult place. There's no tourist or anything. There's no restaurants or there's no Whole Foods. It's nothing. It's like people who lives there and who are defending their country. A place that I felt a little bit worried when I finally got there was Burkina Faso. Even though I think it's a great country, great people, it's not because of them. It's because you have Al Qaeda, and Boko Haram is their neighbors. So, and actually, after I went there, 2 weeks later, they attacked the hotel nearby mine, and they killed 30 people and had 170 hostages. So it was kind of difficult there. But that's where Bombino is from Niger, and he wanted to get to Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso to meet with me. So I didn't want it to be stupid, oh, I'm not gonna go there, let's meet in New York. So I wanted to pay him respect, and at least he took a car and drove 7 hours to get to Ouagadougou. I took a car and drove 24 hours to get to Ouagadougou from Ghana. So that's why I did it, even though it was a little bit difficult.
You say in the documentary that you wanted to be a reflection of what was around you, and let kind of that write itself, the journey write itself, more so than your personal stories, more what you saw there. One of my favorite songs on the album is Guerra. You actually got people to sing on the same track who had been fighting for many years.
Yeah.
Tell me about that process. I mean, were the musicians skeptical of actually working with each other? Did they know they were working with each other? Did you have to explain what the concept of the album was so that they could, you know?
I explained to them that idea when they had their headphones on. You know, when they had, like, they were ready to record, like, it was very complicated to explain that in, you know, from Spanish to English, from English to their language. It was so complicated, so I prefer to do it right there, you know, at the studio, because I was afraid that I couldn't make it. But if they didn't want to record, they can say that to me, and I don't record. But they decided to do it, and yeah, it was great. Like, these kids from Ossetia, I visited a school in Beslan that it was attacked by terrorists from Chechnya. So I have these drums from that same school performing while I have voices from Chechnya. And also I have the panduri from Georgia and those drums from Ossetia that they were in war. So there is a lot of conflicts going on also, and, you know, not conflicts, but they're working together and on a song that it's about war. That complete area, they had war, like, since, I don't know, like thousands of war, like a lot of wars. So that's why I wanted to do a song about war. When I realized that I had a lot from the Alans, that you know, that area, it used to be Alania, I decided that I want to talk about war, so yeah.
One of the most moving scenes for me in the documentary is you're actually sitting with a child who's talking about his father staying in the town when he had to go away, and he starts breaking down. What was going through your mind as that was happening?
No, it was sad. I have a son myself, and it was sad to listen to this kid talking about, you know, crying because his dad had to stay to defend his country. Because when I'm talking about defending your country, I'm not talking about going to another country and attacking another country. It's that Azerbaijan dropped some bombs in his village and they killed kids. And it was very bad. And so they had to flee to Armenia. And that's where I met them. And yeah, it was super shocking for me. And it's still sad. Every time that I see it, it moves me a little bit, you know, it's sad.
It's hard to watch that scene and not kind of put things into perspective of, you know, then you go into your social media and you go into whatever and just someone's posting some bullshit and it's just kind of like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that,
yeah,
you know, is not being addressed.